Thank you so much, Joy, and thank you to ALA for hosting us today and for each of our attendees today for joining and taking time out of the day to join in our discussion. My name is Lisa Hazen. I am the VP of Marketing at Carrot, our cloud-based legal practice management platform that you may have heard of. Carrot Legal creates space for what matters so that legal professionals can spend their time doing their most meaningful and high-value work. I'm honored to be here with you today to discuss a very important topic, your employees and the best way to empower your workforce. It is one of the things that is most rapidly changing in the legal industry, and we have an amazing panel of experts here to join you and to discuss a little bit further. So you'll see here on the screen that 81% of legal professionals acknowledge that recruiting and retaining talent is a critical issue impacting their firms, which is up over 75% since 2022. And we've brought together a panel of incredible women and great minds in the legal industry, whom I'll introduce and share a little bit more with you shortly, to share their thoughts on why this is such a critical and pressing issue. First, we have joining us Michelle Spencer, the lead product marketing manager at NetDocuments. Michelle started her career in the legal industry as a paralegal, then IT management and technology training before becoming a consultant. At NetDocuments, Michelle continues to translate technical concepts and strategies into consumable, adoptable initiatives for legal teams. Welcome, Michelle. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Lisa. Glad to be here.
Next up, we're joined by Shauna Lloyd, the managing partner of the Cochran firm in Orlando and a legal analyst for ABC News. Shauna concentrates and focuses her practice in the areas of motor vehicle accidents, commercial motor vehicle accidents, wrongful death, civil rights violations, and criminal law. Shauna, thanks so much for being with us today. We're glad to have you.
Happy to join you guys today.
And finally, we're joined by Nancy Griffing, CEO and founding partner of 3545 Consulting, a consulting group committed to helping law firms work smarter and more efficiently through technology. In addition to supporting a wide variety of legal practices, Nancy also oversees each of the teams within the company, ensuring projects stay on task through completion. Nancy, we're so glad to have you. Thanks for taking the time with us today.
My pleasure.
And to our attendees, thanks to each of you for taking the time today. We wanted to go ahead and get you involved in the discussion by sharing a poll question that you can each weigh in on. So how great of a challenge do you think employee acquisition and retention is at your firm? And you'll see the polling question and the options show up in the same panel where you're seeing your chat. So we'll take just a few minutes for you to be able to share your answer, and then we'll share the poll results with everyone. Enjoy whenever those results are done. Just let us know and we'll get back to sharing the results.
I'll close it now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So you should be seeing the polling results in the polling panel there on your screen. And it looks like employee acquisition and retention is proving to be a pretty major challenge for some of our attendees today, which means that you're in the right place because we have some fantastic experts here to dig in deeper and share what they've experienced and strategies that they've seen can work. So we'll dig into our first topic and dig a little bit deeper here. So Firms have always had employees, but now this seems to really be a more growing and more prevalent issue in law firms in terms of why do we think that staffing, retention, engagement, et cetera, why is that becoming at the forefront of what firms are thinking about? Shauna, I'll turn it to you first and share your perspective.
I think we have to just look at it, take a step back before we look at the industry and just look at what's happened. COVID. COVID really taught law firms and industries at whole that work can be done without employees being in the office. It also taught us that technology enables that to happen. So what happened? People got used to having work-life balance. People were put back in that situation where they weren't working 80 hours. They were home in the evening. So that changed the landscape, in my opinion, of how employees and employers interact with each other, and what those expectations are exceedingly different. I also think that technology really plays a part in that because people are so much more mobile, now. I shared this story. I was interviewing someone as a legal assistant, and he was here for 8 months, but I didn't know that during COVID he was on TikTok. Well, he was started making so much money as a content creator that he actually resigned. So this technology has also allowed these young people to be able to work across industries. We're competing across industries now and competing with the world, as opposed to just looking within our particular industries like we used to, a long time ago.
Definitely. I completely agree. Nancy, what would you add to the discussion?
Oh, I would definitely echo the sentiments about COVID, but I would also add into the challenge that every business is struggling with when unemployment is at a rate of 4.1% and lower in the law firm area, then struggling for talent, being able to find that talent out in the marketplace is a business-wide, countrywide issue that everybody is trying to struggle with. Even the statistics on law school graduates in 23 dropping down, that number means that those new associates are harder to come by. Coming back up in 24, but how long does it take for them to actually get into the marketplace itself? So I think we're all dealing, no matter what country or what company or what industry, everybody is dealing with that employment issue to some degree.
You're so right. And Michelle, what would you add? What are you seeing from your perspective?
So I would say I am of a certain generation, and there are a lot of us that have a lot of knowledge inside law firms, and we are getting close to, if not reaching, retirement age, the people that are just a little bit older than me. Um, and so I think that brings an important view to why this needs to be addressed now, because if people aren't planning ahead for that loss of knowledge, then that's going to be an even bigger problem in the future.
Definitely. And building off of that point, really that lends us to think more about engaging different generations in the workforce. Shauna, I know when we chatted a little bit earlier, you've done some really interesting things at your firm in terms of engaging different generations and making sure that everybody is participating and active. Can you share a little bit more about your experience and what you're doing at the Cochrane firm?
Absolutely, Lisa. I think, when we talk about workplaces now, there's so much more multi-generational because we have, different groups coming together to achieve a common goal. And when we have that, you really need that engagement because younger people are so much more reliant on technology than they were, previous generations. And then we have, what I like to call the older generation, the old guard, who's kind of a little leery of technology. So here, what we find works really well is we take a lot of our senior partners and we'll pair them with a younger legal assistant who is technologically savvy. And these pairings have actually produced, the first one happened on accident. And then we started realizing this was something we should continue doing, is because what happens is the older senior attorneys love having someone who can teach them technology and integrate technology into their world. So that way they are very adept now at things that might have been giving them some issues before, whether it's Zoom meetings, whether it's a Zoom depot and putting up that exhibit, or making sure that it's saved, or getting that presentation right, handing over speakership to another person. Those are things that I think used to hang up some of our senior partners, and now that we're pairing them with younger legal assistants, they have it at their fingertips, which actually works because it's actually teaching them skills that they wouldn't have otherwise bothered to stop and go do, right? Like, a senior partner is not stopping to take a Zoom course on Zoom or the phone or any other thing. And the younger associate or legal assistants are loving it, right? When's the last time they had that kind of exposure to a senior partner, right? So they're picking up the legal knowledge that AI and these other tools can't teach them. And so we've found that pairing works really, really well.
So I that brings up a thought for me. I know a lot of firms have dramatically increased their secretary to attorney ratios in the last several years.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if this sort of model, so they haven't been able to give that personal service that they did back when I probably started within law firms many, many decades ago. So has that affected how you're handling your ratios of assistants to attorneys at all?
Absolutely. You bring up a very good point, because now I think law firms are realizing that they can cover more ground, right? Between technology and having more support staff to deal with clients, they're taking on more cases. And we find it works because what ends up happening is, because the attorneys are not directly speaking with the clients, the younger associates and staff are learning so much more about the legal system. So that knowledge that used to be institutional and may not be passed down is actually being passed down at a higher rate, so which makes for better customer service, right? Because now the staff
Of
member is
course.
so much more empowered to talk to the clients.
Well, and we find that when we're introducing technology into the law firm, it follows your track in the sense that the legal assistants are really the true key to making sure that the technology is going to be adapted and that we have the right foundation when we're deploying. So they really do have their fingers on the pulse of the firm. They do have that contact and interaction. And when they're able to really interact with the process of deploying the technology, then it permeates the law firm much faster. There's higher adoption rate, and change management is much less of a struggle. So I couldn't agree more with that statement that they are truly the key.
And I will add, having been an IT person in a law firm for a very long time, that um, the first line of defense is usually the attorney's staff. They're going to turn to them and ask them a question before they're going to pick up the phone and call someone. And you could tell the staff that had really adapted and adopted technology always set their attorneys up for success with the technology.
I would agree, and I'd echo what Nancy and Michelle are saying, is that, with technology, sometimes we find that, the older generations are a little bit more resistant to wanting to adopt it because, in law firms especially, it was always about how many hours you put in and how long you had been there, because what that really translated into was that you had a wealth of information and experience to draw from. So, we find a little leery of adapting and taking on that technology because they feel like they're losing something about their job, their position, what it means to them. But the staff, when you can show them how it actually integrates and makes their job easier, you get that higher adoption rate, right? This isn't about trying to eliminate or reduce jobs. This is actually about taking those mundane tasks that you spend most of your time doing, automating those so that way you can actually do the things that we can't replace, which is client facing. And in a law firm, we know that that's where clients are won, is in client facing interactions. That's what gives us referrals. And technology helps bridge that gap when you get that adoption rate. But that adoption is really about education and people realizing it's not about replacing the job. It's about taking away the things that take that time. They're time consuming and they don't need to be now that we have that level of technology.
I think it also is the source. In years past, the concept of an associate being mentored or being trained by a more senior attorney was fantastic. And the transfer of knowledge was very personal from one to the other and over a period of time. But with this higher turnover rate, then that isn't the same possibility. So how do you retain that intellectual property of the firm and allow it to pass on with a higher turnover rate, and also to allow it to adapt and permeate the entire firm? It certainly is technology that is the method of being able to do that. By garnering that as a tool, then the firm itself is really benefiting from the knowledge that has been gained by the experience level of all of the legal professionals in the firm.
And I would add to that it's really important with the way that technology is changing. It's sped up exponentially the longer that I have done this. And I would say creating a culture of learning and the understanding that change is going to be a constant. And so we are going to constantly be in that mode of learning, relearning, uh, and then also creating that culture of sharing that knowledge. And so that it's not just tied up with that one person who's the expert.
Michelle,
Oh,
I
sorry.
love that point of the, oh, sorry, Shauna. I love that point of the culture of learning. How are you guys seeing really fostering that culture of learning, but also respecting maybe the traditions that already exist within the firm? So how do you see that balance happening? Shauna, pose it to you first, and then we can go around.
I mean, I think, Nancy and Michelle really touched on it, is that now, every firm has that person, that is the person that is the firm. They integrate all of the new staff, they know everything, they remember everything. But in the past, what's happened is there's been something that's been lost when that person retires or is no longer there, because there's only so much institutional knowledge that gets passed down once they realize they no longer want to be there. Technology is bridging that gap, because once we get all of that information into our client management system, now these things are being documented, they're being immortalized. And so you are able to retain that spirit and the culture of the firm as you bring new people in. And I think that's really important, because when you talk about why clients engage with law firms, there's a feeling that they get when they bring their firms, their friends back to me because they have a case. It's because they had a certain feeling when they worked with me. They had a certain feeling when they worked with my staff. And that's not something that can ever be replaced. But I do think that technology is giving us the means by which we can actually translate that from new staff member to new staff member, as opposed to it being watered down over the years. You can now kind of add technology into supporting that culture, which is really vitally important for law firms, especially in this day and age.
And you can actually keep everyone connected that way. So if you have the technology, and not just the technology, but the innovation that is happening at light speed right now with the technology, the introduction of AI is a complete disruptor into the whole technology mold of what we thought technology was all about. But that innovation, as you see new innovative ways of working with the products that are there, it's a conversation starter. It's something to bind the firm together as they all figure out how to navigate these new tools that they have in front of them. And they develop an excitement level for being able to do that at the same time.
Absolutely. I think the AI thing is very interesting because it levels the playing field in some ways, right? Before, a younger associate would have to, they'd be working with the senior partner for years, right, to get this sort of knowledge. Whereas now, they can turn to AI and it's generating these motions, it's generating a lot of information that they used to have to do a lot more research to do. And some of, our more seasoned partners are a little leery of AI, right? Because their idea is that this is just, there's no bounds, there's no controls, you can't trust it, don't use it. But the truth is, it actually saves them the ability and time. So that way they could do what? Which is more trials, they can touch more clients. Because now, if your associate is using AI to get past those sort of, the basics, you still have the senior partner there to really overlook it and say, yeah, I see where that tried to go, but we're going in this direction. And here's where you need to hone in on. And in my experience, this is what's needed. This is what this judge is going to want. It allows for the real learning to happen, right? Because certain parts of it, finding the case itself and making sure all your parenthetical cites are right, that's not learning how to be a good lawyer, right? That's just documentation. And if AI can help speed that up, you get the time for both the associate and the senior partner to actually take on more than they used to in the past, because they're able to shortcut the things that aren't necessary, And I think that's where you see that sort of coming together and being able to express that and to show senior partners and young people how to use AI responsibly. You don't just get a motion and think you can submit it. No, you actually have
No.
to verify, you have to do those things. But if it gives you some research and groundwork, so that way it didn't take you, a week of research and you did it in a couple of hours, well, that's a benefit not only to the client, but to the attorney. Everyone benefits. And I think that's the part that people don't see when they think about AI, is that controlled AI is a good thing.
Yeah,
It's
so
very
I'll add that, and it's at a couple of ends of the spectrum. So we have one customer who created an automated process for these highly complex expert visa applications. And one of the ways that he handled the training aspect is he makes his associates do the process manually 10 times before he will let them use the automation, because it is a highly specific area and he wants them to know what to look for in the output of the automation. And so there are use cases at that high end of kind of those bespoke uh, applications for the technology. And you have to have your senior partners involved, because they are the ones who have in their heads that intellectual knowledge of how they actually do the work. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have those very mundane, kind of easy for AI and automation to do tasks, like, for instance, deposition summaries. If I never had to see another deposition transcript in my life, I would be thrilled. And now with technology, we have the ability to do automated summaries. We have the ability to have conversations with those documents and ask specific things, and also have conversations across documents. And so you're removing some of the kind of drudgery legal work, and giving that to the technology, to Shanna's point, so that your people can spend more time on those higher value tasks, working directly with clients. So I think it's a really exciting prospect for getting people re-engaged with the work.
AI, no question, but also just the technology in general elevates what the legal professional is actually doing on a day-to-day basis. So whether that is taking the drudgery out of a deposition summary, or whether that is making it an easier task to be able to enter time and expense and to incorporate that as a part of your workflow in your day-to-day activities, any of those things take the traditional complaints of practicing law and elevate them or move them out of the picture and elevate the tasks that are being done to practicing law, which is what every legal professional really truly wants to do. They want to spend time with their client and they want to find solutions for those clients. And technology now enables them to do that.
Yeah, I think that that is a wonderful point because it's really elevating the work that you're able to do and the strategy and the value behind it instead of getting bogged down into tasks that could have taken so much time prior and really are not where the true value comes in. I wanted to shift topics a little bit in terms of tenure, of what we're seeing, because maybe now as the employment landscape is changing, the tenure that you may see with associates may not be quite as long as it was prior. So recent studies show that 40% of associates will leave their law firm within 3 to 4 years. As employers and technology providers, why is that something that matters to us and why should we care? Nancy, I'd love to start with you first in terms of your take on how really we should adapt into the changing tenure in a law firm.
No question, technology has to be at the forefront in order to accommodate that changing um, dynamic and the way that there is the turnover. We really have to embrace it and then find ways to be able to make that transition smoother. And the two ways of doing that are technology and education. Being able to get engagement early on, being able to transition the knowledge through the technology from one legal professional to another without losing ground. If there's a 6 month ramp up for a new legal professional, then the profits of the firm are being sacrificed if that's happening on a more frequent and occurring basis. But instead, if that can be a 2 week to 6 week process to get them fully integrated into the firm and the technology that's being used, that really reduces the pain and torture for everyone to be able to adapt to this new changing model.
Shauna, what would you add?
I definitely agree with you, Nancy, on that. I mean, here we look at a long-term employee now more to be more like 5 to 7 years. It used to be that when you were with a law firm, the more institutional knowledge you had, the more valuable you were. You were more efficient, you could train others in the way. And so you built up that seniority. And so people didn't leave. But nowadays people are so much more career transient than they used to be. People are mobilized. These young people are changing jobs much more frequently. And as they do that, if law firms aren't accounting for that, you're going to be caught, unexpectedly without enough staff. And that's problematic. It also, as Nancy said, when you talk about ramping up an employee, or if one is leaving, the time it takes to replace them is very important because that speaks to productivity. It speaks to how you manage your caseload. So when you're looking at forecasting, we don't see that as a long-term employee now is 5 to 7 years because people are moving about. There's just too many opportunities now with technology that are allowing people to move around. So if you're not accounting for that, you've lost something. And I think that's just the reality of where we are now. But technology also helps shorten that time frame too. I mean, we automate our onboarding for probably after the first day. There's 48 hours that they're watching modules, or they have forms to complete, or they're doing practice things to understand our software. So it's interactive. So that way it's not just put a video on, like when you're back in school and walk away. These things are allowing us to do that, which actually decreases our onboarding time. And technology, again, has been the driving force of that. And that's really important when we're looking at forecasting for employees and growth.
And I'll add to that. I've seen some statistics recently that the differentiation between explicit knowledge and implicit knowledge. And explicit knowledge is the knowledge that's codified in your documents. It's the stuff that everyone knows versus implicit, which is what's in someone's head that maybe isn't on paper. And 95% of the knowledge is that implicit knowledge. So if you're not looking at knowledge management and how to capture that knowledge and be sure that you have data that's not focused on individuals. Like I hate that OneDrive and SharePoint are structured to be tied to the individual because that does not benefit the company at all, right? You need things that are tied to the project, the client, the matter, and guide people to work in those ways so that that knowledge is there for that next person that comes along.
I agree. We've taken a lot of jobs and actually reduced them to almost as if you were to think of like a unit. You know, someone is gathering medical records, someone is sending out letters of representation, because what that allows us to do is to put that knowledge into technology. So that way, if that person who's now more career transient leaves, we don't have the downtime. We can actually take that and get the next person ready for that position. And it actually allows us to change who we're bringing in. Because as we've talked about, the talent pool shrinking, you know, before there was a direct pipeline, right? You went to law school, you got in with a big law firm. And so there was always this pipeline of talent from your local law school or, you know, a national law school. Now that people are moving around, you have to be able to expand who you can bring into the firm. And by using technology to kind of make jobs a little bit more unit based, we can bring people in who may not have been in the legal sector before, educate them enough to be able to do this task description. So you are now our medical records person, and their only job is to get medical records. I can teach that to you now because it's all based in the technology. The training is there, the information is there, and it also allows me to broaden who I can bring in because I'm now not confined to someone who's already been in the legal industry.
Well, and I'll add to that, at one of my high school reunions a few years ago, we actually went back to my high school and we were touring around the school. And when we went to their business education area, there was a whole wall of Microsoft certifications that their students had already gotten prior to graduating high school. And so if you're limiting your pool and you're only looking at, say, college graduates, you are missing out on a lot of people that have knowledge and are looking for a good job with a career path, which I think legal provides that because there are so many areas that you can expand into, like I've done in my career.
Well, I think it also lends to the technology lends to more empirical evidence of the success of an individual and what they're actually accomplishing within the firm itself. Everybody, regardless of where you are or what job you're performing, we all want to feel good about what we're doing on a daily basis. And we want to feel like we're accomplishing something that, when you have a hectic, busy day that just flies by and you feel about like the end of the day you haven't accomplished anything, it's kind of a letdown to feel that way. When technology can say, well, here is a team, this is the number of contracts that were reviewed and completed in this period of time. And this is compared to what we were able to do last time. And these are the results that we have for our client. This is the difference that it made for them. Or being able to process those medical records in a faster, more efficient way. All of those things really, really help people understand the value of what they're doing and the value of what they're bringing to their client, which I think leads to strong job satisfaction.
You know, you brought up something I want to touch on, Nancy, is technology not only helps us with our job, what people aren't realizing is you have data that is so valuable to firm planning. You know, everyone has a VoIP phone, right? But they don't understand the analytics behind that. Like, for instance, I know that my highest call volume is actually on Thursday. So on Thursday, we have an extra receptionist who comes in, right? Because I was able to analyze the data and realize that we were missing one out of every third call on a Thursday. So we now have a receptionist that comes in specifically on Thursdays. When you're looking at, do I have enough staffing? Well, now with your client management system, we're able to analyze what is the amount of time it takes from our leads to be contracted to then begin the process. The LOR goes out. And what we realize is that we can use that data to tell us, okay, wait, this process is taking entirely too long. That means that what that means is I'm probably understaffed in that area. And so not only can technology help your job, but it can actually forecast where you need to staff and what areas are understaffed. And I think that's something that people don't realize, that data can, and the technology can actually drive that data that can actually tell you where you should be looking at for staffing. And why is that important? That's important because that means that the existing staff is more satisfied. Number one job complaint that you hear is that people feel like they're doing the work of 2 and 3 persons. Well, you eliminate that if you can start to recognize and say that, oh, wow, this area, oh, it's taking way too long for my medical records. My medical records are taking, 3 months. Why is that? Maybe you need to bring someone else to assist with that, or maybe you need to outsource that to a third party. But those pain points not only help the business grow, but it also helps the existing staff feel like you're recognizing what's happening to them and you are there to assist them. And that's really important for job satisfaction.
And I'll add to that, you could also automate some of those processes or make self-service solutions, like for intake. If you add the technology to that process, for example, that allows you to be more responsive more quickly, and to take the kind of the manual rote stuff that people used to have to do by hand out of those processes. Then you're able to give them the job satisfaction, because then they're actually interacting with those clients versus just filling out forms.
I think the point you made, Shauna, really has to be underscored, that when people feel as if they're overburdened for one of two clear reasons. Reason number one is, as you mentioned, you're not staffed properly. Reason number two is the technology is not serving you well. And a readjustment on the technology and staffing properly, no question, leads to a higher job satisfaction rate, because not only does the person feel like I'm doing the job of 3, but I'm doing the job of 3 and maybe my coworker is not. So that resource leveling is so critically important, so that everybody feels as if they're in an equal environment and they're all working together and producing what they need to produce. So the empirical evidence that you can pull so easily from the technology is critically important to helping you get there.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that we're seeing too is that as consumer technology is evolving so quickly, there's more of an expectation as staff come in terms of the modern ease of use, look and feel that's really matching their consumer experience of what they're seeing in technology in their day to day. Nancy, with your experience of being such a critical part of so many um, technology decisions and evaluations, are you seeing any changing expectations as staff are coming in based off of what they're experiencing in their daily life, maybe outside of the legal field?
Oh, absolutely. As new employees are coming in, there's a huge pressure on the firm because they are coming in with that technology expectation. And if a new employee walks in and sees an application that looks like it was built in the 1980s, because it was built in the 1980s and really hasn't advanced since then, they're really deflated, having just left their educational environment where they were using the latest and greatest technology, and even in their personal lives where they're using that technology, the disappointment level, the frustration level of not feeling like they're avant-garde or they're moving forward with their professional life is depleting. But by the same token, it is enlightening when that technology is appealing, that technology is fresh and new, and they can see the benefits of having everything that's in there. So from the very day that a new person enters the firm, their first exposure to how forward thinking the firm is is the technology that they're introduced to. So those videos that Shauna is providing are huge to be able to say, we are a leading technology firm. You've come to the right place. You're going to find a job here that is going to be satisfying because you'll be able to use your skills and the technology will support you in doing so.
And I'll add to that that clients have the same expectations because they are interacting with businesses day in and day out. And if your business is not matching the expectations of experiences that they're having with their bank or their grocery store, even, if your stuff is clunky and they don't have the ability to quickly upload documents that you need from them and things like that, and collaborate with you, uh, that's a problem for your business, because they will go look elsewhere for somebody who does have those capabilities.
I would agree. I mean, I think that, in this day and age, everything from our health records to, as Michelle said, our banking records, everything is available on this little device. I mean, it's at buttons and you got it. And so if law firms who traditionally are very slow at adapting technology don't catch up, they're going to be phased out. And it's problematic because clients do want a portal. We have a client portal. They can upload documents. If they want to text us, they actually text us and it goes straight into the file, right? Which is really important because that technology is available with everyone. Sometimes clients, get in accidents at 2 a.m. They want to know that they can send that documentation immediately. And there's no reason now with the technology that's available that firms aren't adopting it. It's necessary and it makes their life easier and it also makes my paralegals love this feature. Why? Before it was having to explain to a client, it was trying to figure out how to get it to them. Now it goes straight into the case file. There's nothing to be done, and that's something that makes their job better. It makes my client experience better. So keeping up with that technology and understanding the chat, right? Being able to chat with them, all of that just makes a better user experience. And both of you were right in the sense that clients feel like if you are not on the edge of technology and integrating it in the way that every other industry around us has, then maybe you're not going to be up on the law. Maybe you're not as, and so they start to make these assessments that law firms are not ready to deal with. And so we just have to integrate it bit by bit because that experience is available in every other sector. And we can no longer say, well, we're a law firm, we do things differently. No, we actually have to catch up because let me tell you, part of the pipeline issue is these graduates are going out on their own.
Mhm.
They have AI to back them.
Mhm.
Have all this technology to back them. So they're going out and hanging a shingle at a higher rate than they used to. And so if they're able to do it and they're on social media and they have the portal and they have all these things, you're going to lose clients to them. And so we just have to be very cognizant of as an industry and as law firms individually and start adapting and getting ourselves used to it because it definitely increases our staff's just satisfaction with their job, and it increases our client experience, and that's invaluable.
It's huge. And when people in the past, firms were making decisions about new technology because the billing and accounting department needed to have a new program. And so they were going to look for a program that met the needs of the billing and accounting department. Now, what we're hearing in those software selection discussions is our clients are demanding that we have this ability to communicate with them through a client portal. Our clients need us to produce these invoices faster than they did before. Our clients want to have up-to-date status in meetings where they know what is going on, or they want that information communicated to them without having to stop and pause and take a meeting. And that is a totally different twist than what we heard before. Before we were looking for software and we were looking for solutions that supported the firm. We still are, but now the focus on is how will this make your client experience better? And for those firms that are focused on that, we know they're not only going to succeed with the software, but they're going to succeed in the competition level as well.
Absolutely. And I'll touch on something you just mentioned is buy-in, right?
Mm.
When we're looking at technology, it used to be, like you said, it was the accounting department, it was a senior partner who liked it. Now the way we do things is we actually bring in our stakeholders. So our head paralegal gets to sit into these presentations. And we have our case managers, the head case manager gets to sit in on these presentations. And what we've learned is that that's invaluable. They actually are dealing with the pain points of whatever software you choose daily. And if they don't like it, they don't use it.
Yep.
If there's features that can help them, they don't use them because they don't like it. And so if you can get their input, you get their buy-in. And if you get their buy-in, you get high adoption rate. And so we've learned that that's a very valuable process to bring them into, especially, in the beginning. So that way they feel like they were heard, they feel like their pain points were recognized. And let's remember, they talk to the clients much more than the attorney does. So they also know the client's pain points. And being able to address that is just satisfaction for the client, for the staff, and it makes the organization work well because now they're using the technology that you're investing in and using it to its fullest potential, which makes them more efficient. It makes them feel happy, valued. All of those things add to longevity.
I'll tell a story that perfectly illustrates this because I am in my 50s and I still remember this incident. I was an 18-year-old data entry clerk at a law firm because everything used to have to be entered manually into the system. And the firm was getting a new accounting system. And they made a specific effort to include me in that process, even though I was the lowest person on the totem pole. But that made me feel like the role that I had there and the information that I knew about that other people probably didn't was valuable to them. Um, and so that has stuck with me all of these years later.
It is amazing. We've worked with many firms and had many selection committees, but in order to really truly go through the sales process effectively, what you're describing, Shauna, is imperative to have people from the various different disciplines involved in the decision making and also involved in the design and the beginning discovery element of how to use the application and how to be able to perpetuate that application throughout. More and more frequently, we have a selection committee that is going to make the ultimate decision, but that choice process is given to the paralegals and the legal assistants. They're the ones, again, that key group that can really pull technology together for the whole firm. And when we know we have the paralegals or legal assistants coming in to make that decision, we know that we're going to have a home run because they're going to choose something that is going to work for every different person in the firm, whether it's the seniors, whether it is the brand new juniors, whether it is those people with a different skill set, because I firmly believe, like you, that they are the glue that pulls together the technology for the firm.
I'll add that a lot of people are just throwing in AI solutions right now and not focusing on the fact that prompting and a really good grounding and understanding of what the software can and can't do is so important to starting the use of new technology. And so you need to understand that that is a skill that's going to have to develop over time, just like any other skill, and you're going to need resources to develop those skills. Um, so I think that's something I keep seeing over and over is people will, oh, we got this thing, but they didn't spend the time to really help their people figure out and understand how to use it well.
Absolutely. And that actually goes really great to one of the questions that we just had come in from one of our audience members. So Tracy Woods, thank you so much for your question. She shared that we are in the midst of software demos, some that contain robust AI features. I'm curious what solutions you found work best for your firms. Our firm size is 25 users. Nancy, I'll pose that one to you first, especially within your role and the role that you play at 3545 Consulting.
Sure. I would say definitely that looking at the applications for the solution to AI is very critically important, and it comes in two different ways. It can come through the legal practice management, but it also needs to be a critical part of the document management because your actual workload is going to be centered around the documents themselves, and being able to work with those documents effectively is very, very important. AI is very, very new in the practice management area. It hasn't been unleashed yet as far as what it's going to be able to do. We know that we're going to be able to ask questions as opposed to generating reports. We know that we're going to be able to look toward AI for summarization automatically of things that it knows are important to our firm, and to be able to help guide us as to how to work forward in the firm itself. But it's in its infancy. Every single product says that they have AI in some way, shape, or form, and they do. But the AI that they have may not be the AI for you. So discriminate uh, against what you don't believe is what's going to be useful to you, and look at what the long-term plan is for the products in the future. So not just what the AI that they have today, they've done that in order to make sure they have that AI stamp, but where are they going with it? What do they intend to do within the next 5 years with that AI implementation? It's widely, vastly different. There are products that are like NetDocuments that have fully baked AI incorporated in the program itself, and then there are others that have a very light touch with a bit of a chatbot included in their software. So very, very different stages of it, but cool.
And I would add to that, you need to have your AI strategy tied to your firm strategy. And you need to have your list of requirements. What things would it help you to automate or to improve? What processes and in what areas? So the way that we've been talking to people about it is you have kind of these buckets of function for AI. So you've got things like legal research, which is its own category and its own set of solutions. And then you have your general business processes. And so things like Microsoft Copilot might be able to help with some of that, but then how much can they help with your legal work product? And within your legal work product, what solution kind of breakdowns are there? And so I would take a step back if you haven't already before you start looking at solutions, and really build your strategy around your firm's strategy.
I think,
That's a
you
great.
know, boiling down AI in some ways to a simple thought, and I know that, you know, I had this conversation with someone who's in technology, so I am not in technology, clearly. But essentially, AI is an aggregator. It takes information, and under certain sets of parameters, it gives you back that information. And if you think of it that simply, it's very easy to break down where your firm might need it. So for instance, we have a platform that allows us to use AI for client updates. They can text us, hey, I have a question about my case. AI will say, hi, how are you? And then it says something like, is your update in reference to? Because we have given it a library of these topics, and this is the response that we want to give. Anything outside of it, it then says, okay, I will be sure to email your case manager. You'll have an answer within 24 hours. Because what we realized is that for us, client updates are something that are at the top of our priority, but a lot of it was repetitive. It's information we've already given the client. They just need to hear it again. And so we were able to give our AI system a database of answers. And so if you think about it, it just needs information, and it basically just spits that information back out at you in an easy, summarized fashion. Research is a way that we use AI. Tell us about this law. Was there any cases where it was differentiated against? Was there a judge that didn't like it? We get back a lot of information that would have taken hours and days to sift through to find that one case that has something about it that's unique to it. Have you ever seen this law applied to trains? And it goes through a lot of information. So if you think of AI like that, it's easier to think about how it applies to your firm, because I think we think of AI as this, us non-tech people think of AI as this big monstrous thing, and we don't know exactly what it does. Well, right now, it just takes a lot of information and condenses it to what you're asking it for. And so that's helped us and our branches really figure out where it is that it's best going to be utilized.
Absolutely. And I would underscore again the concept of having that plan and an AI policy in your firm, and make sure that the software product that you're vetting is going to be compliant with that.
Yes.
In other words, everybody is using AI somehow. You can't do a Google search without doing AI. It's everywhere. So we're all using it regardless of where people are in life from a technology perspective. But how should it be used responsibly within the firm? And what are those guidelines and parameters that you want to have? And then does this product meet those guidelines, parameters, and your long-term planning, as well as your future view of where you're going to be with AI? So thinking about all the things that Shauna said, how can you harness this AI in order to aggregate the things that you need to do without using human intervention? Once again, it's no different than a really well-skilled or well-built platform from a software perspective. It enables you to do your job better, spend more time on the actual work product, and less time in the redundant area of trying to gather information, find information, produce information in order to be able to use the information.
And that's a good point. I'll underscore that. There is actually something our employees sign that say that, as far as AI, it is company approved AI only. These are the programs that we allow because it's been vetted, right? It's not just something we don't have employees just going on AI. No. These are system-wide things that we use and that we roll out, and that people understand that they are actually not authorized to use any AI outside of what is company approved. Because that's a very good point, Nancy, is it must meet your culture status, what you have on that firm, where you guys want to go, and does it meet your vetting policy? That's a very good point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the ethical considerations are kind of paramount, and they're changing all the time. There have been, an ABA opinion came out over the summer, and then additionally, local jurisdictions and states have come out with their own policies. I think Georgia's probably the most recent one in the last couple of weeks. And so you really have to keep an eye on that and what effect that has. Really interesting statistic, because a lot of people have said, oh, my clients won't allow me to use AI. The Blickstein Group does a corporate legal department survey every year, and this year's survey, only 10% of the respondents are restricting the use of AI. So there is a big shift, and it's becoming more the norm rather than the exception, for sure.
That is a fascinating statistic. Well, I think that we are at the end of our time here today. I think that we could probably all go on discussing this topic for another hour, 2 hours, or the entire afternoon, but we know that everybody has day jobs to get back to. So Shauna, Nancy, Michelle, thank you all so much for sharing your time, your expertise, and your insights. I know that our audience got a ton of value from the discussion and what you shared with us here today. ALA, thank you so much for hosting this webinar and allowing us to be a part of it. You will see on your screen there are QR codes to learn a little bit more about Carrot Legal and Net Documents, as well as 3545 Consulting. We really appreciate you being a part of it today. Thank you for being here, and we look forward to being with you again soon. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.